In 1986, the developer Cinemaware released their first game onto the Commodore Amiga, Defender of the Crown. A strategy game set in 1149 England between the Saxons and the Normans. The initial game was so well received that it was later ported to nearly every system at the time, including PC-DOS, Macintosh, Commodore 64, Apple II OS, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, Philips CDI, NES, GBA, and now available on GOG, Steam, iOS and Android. Despite a string of successful games, Cinemaware eventually went bankrupt in 1991, but their IPs and assets were later picked up in 2000 and renamed Cinemaware Inc. Along with digitally remastering Cinemaware's back catalogue, Cinemaware Inc. planned to also release modern remakes of these games, starting with their first game and what we'll be looking at today, Robin Hood, Defender of the Crown. It's the time of the Second Crusade. King Richard is being held captive in a foreign land, and under the inept rule of Prince John, England has fallen into disarray. Broken into warring factions led by the county's noblemen.
You would have us believe this rot, John Lackland.
Come, John. Surely you must have known we would require proof of Richard's death before we'd give consent to have you crowned king.
Guards, these men are traitors. They were executed immediately.
What is the meaning of this? No!
As the situation becomes worse, this cannot escape the attention of a certain band of outlaws. Enter Robin Hood and his merry men.
Fageless?
No. We're straight. Just merry.
How's I?
The original game had you choose between one of four Saxons to battle the Normans for control over England. Robin Hood appears as an ally who assists with your campaign, but is not the focus. I suppose to make the game more appealing, Cinemaware Inc. decided to shift the story focus towards a character most people would recognise. The game starts in Nottingham, which serves as the tutorial area, a scaled down version of the main game to come. This tutorial teaches you the basics of raiding and battles. The raids come in two forms of an archery ambush on caravans and a sword fighting raid on enemy strongholds. Nottingham is divided into several areas. On top of successful raids, occupying more land will bring in a daily income of gold which goes towards your campaign against the sheriff.
Pardon me, sir, but could you direct me to the nearest constable? My friends and I are quite drunk, and we look for a fight.
Little John acts as your military leader and is in charge of directing the battles as well as recruiting troops and managing their numbers and position.
And so did the merry men soundly defeat their nemesis, that rascally scoundrel, the Sheriff of Nottingham, once again.
Is that it? Of course not. This is a minor victory compared to what's to come. Despite the liberation of Nottingham, England still remains fractured, much to Marion's concern.
What more can be done? Unless I were to conquer England myself, nothing would be... You want me to conquer England, don't you?
I would you save England.
Yes, you have to conquer England. No pressure. To re-establish order, you must lead a countrywide campaign against the other lords and Prince John whilst raising the ransom to free King Richard.
Wilfred?
My lady.
Robin, this gentle knight is Sir Wilfred of Ivanhoe.
Marion introduces you to Sir Wilfred of Ivanhoe. In the original Defender of the Crown, Wilfred is one of the four selectable characters. Sod these other three, they get demoted to NPCs in this. Wilfred's brought his armour, he knows the score. Wilfred believes in your cause and offers his services. He shows you the layout of the land, the 4 rival lords, and special counties with their unique benefits like cheaper lumber in Canterbury or higher quality stone in York, for example. But Wilfred's main purpose is the construction of strongholds and the participation in tournaments. A contest?
An archery contest?
No, afraid not. Since this is a remake of a non-Robin Hood centric game, the tournament is jousting.
Lords and ladies, welcome to today's tournament. Now to round 1. Wilfred of Ivanhoe challenges a young knight.
Winning tournaments is very beneficial as you win fame, gold, and a county.
It's good to have land.
Indeed it is. More land means more income. More income means more strongholds and troops. And more strongholds and troops equals victory!
And there was much rejoicing.
As the game progresses, more members of the Men of Merriment come to your assistance. Friar Tuck is in charge of collecting King Richard's ransom money, and Maid Marian, who is not the typical damsel in distress, has a network of spies who will scout out enemy counties and report their numbers so you know what you're up against. This spying, however, is risky, as every now and then Robin Hood is called upon to rescue a spy and... sometimes they get captured. These rescues come in the same form as the Stronghold sword-fighting raids and... Hey! None of that, you cheating git! Since everyone is familiar with the Robin Hood story, it comes to no surprise that in this version, the ultimate goal is to overthrow Prince John and restore King Richard to the throne. If you're now calling spoilers, I apologise for kicking over the rock you're living under. This is a focus I thought added to the experience. In the original, King Richard is dead, which is the reason the kingdom is in disarray, and the crown goes to your chosen character. This got me thinking, this game could be seen as a prequel. King Richard is still alive, and Robin, Wilfred and their men take it upon themselves to bring order to England. Later, after Richard dies, coming into the original game, an empty throne once again throws the lords into upheaval, and as Robin Hood has experience dealing with this situation, he's once again called upon to assist the lords, just to a lesser degree. I initially didn't know what to make of this game going into it. The strategy management sim is a genre I've never been into, but I fancied a challenge by leaving my comfort zone. Overall, I ended up enjoying this, and someday may even give the original a try, as there are modern means of obtaining it. If, like me, this kind of game has intrigued you, but finds something like Civilization, Total War or Stronghold rather daunting, then Robin Hood Defender of the Crown would make a good introduction. It has the basics of the aforementioned games, but without the massive learning curve and the heaps of micromanagement that's always put me off. Adding a Robin Hood story to the pre-existing game doesn't detract from the main objective of conquering England, it just adds a different story and a new perspective character-wise. A modern 3D conversion has its pros and cons. The direct melee combat can be a bit hit and miss due to awkward perspective, and the sword fighting suffers from the same problem as the classic Resident Evil's camera shift, making you suddenly head in the wrong direction when the screen changes. But on the other hand, the voice acting is very good, and the inclusion of real music and crowd sounds gives the jousting tournament a fun atmosphere. If you'd like to get into strategy games, I say, if you come across a copy, pick it up. It has definitely inspired me to give others a chance.